Hello, Blue Jays fans, and welcome to Sunny Side of the Dome. I'm your host, Karen Soutar, and I'll be here to talk some Blue Jays baseball with you for the next half hour or so. Sunny Side of the Dome is brought to you by Jays from the Couch. We stream live usually Thursdays at 6 p.m. I know today's Wednesday, special day, special circumstance, but normally you can find us Thursdays at 6 p.m. And you can find us on Jays from the Couch's YouTube channel, Facebook page, or Twitter page. And if you are watching, following along live, and you think of a question or comment, please do send it in. I really think it makes the show that much better to have listener interaction. And if you don't catch the live version, but you want to see what's happening this week, no problem. You're ready for us. We're ready for you. So you can always catch the archived version on Facebook, Twitter, or the YouTube channel. And I'm so excited that as of actually last week, there's another option that we're available as well as the main podcast as a radio podcast, which you can subscribe, you can download, you can listen, if you go to work or school or whatever it is that you do, and plug it in and listen, then great. And if you like the content here at Sunny Side of the Dome, there's lots more where that came from. There's Jays from the Couch's main podcast on Mondays at 6 p.m., hosted by Shaun Doyle. Always lots of good stuff happening there. And the other show, the other YouTube show / podcast is the On Feck Circle. That's Tuesdays at 6 p.m. That's hosted by Steve Feck, who's always got lots of interesting things to say, lots of experience, very unique perspective. So entertaining, informed, and very worth watching and listening to. So definitely check it out if you haven't been doing so. And hello, Blue Jay fans. Happy Wednesday evening. I almost said Thursday, force of habit. How's everybody doing? Hope you're doing great. It's been a few weeks since we've been around. And lots of good things happening. I don't know about you guys, but I'm a lot happier now that our Blue Jays I'm at. I'm doing fine, thanks. Hope you are too. Thanks for tuning in. I'm a lot happier now that our Blue Jays have gone 9-1 in their last 10 games than in the previous 10 games when they were 1-9. Well, look at that. It evened out, at least for the 20-game span there. But we need them to do better than that. They are doing better than that overall, and we'll definitely get to that in a bit. In the meantime, leading off, as always, transactions. Lots has happened in the last few weeks. And not too surprisingly, a majority of it has been with regard to the pitchers. The revolving door for our Blue Jays regarding pitching still seems to be continuing. So the transactions that did happen that were not pitcher related per se is that Danny Jansen was ready to come back off of the injured list, and he is back, and welcome back to him, picking off right where he left off. Hitting well, doing great, making contributions that way. Unfortunately, with him coming back, somebody had to go the other way, and it was Gabriel Moreno. So he's back in AAA. He's been optioned. He has now had his first taste of Major League Baseball. I'm still very excited about this young man's future, and I'm glad to have him with the Toronto Blue Jays. Kind of hoping he doesn't get traded, but that's upcoming stuff. We'll get to all of that. But he came up. We had some really good look at some good tools that he has, and unfortunately, over his short stint here and not the playing time that he might ultimately get as a number one catcher. By the time he was optioned back down, he had struggled a bit with his numbers, and that's understandable. More often than not, you bring a raw rookie up to Major League Baseball, and there is an adjustment period because it's by far the highest level of competition and ability that you're going to face, at least in North American professional baseball. The leap from AAA to Major League Baseball is very significant. So I'm sure we have not seen the last of Gabriel Moreno, and all the best. Do great down there, excuse me, and I'm sure he'll be back before too long. Excuse me just a second. Okay, so the pitchers. So Max Castillo was brought back up, and I mean, basically for somebody who really wasn't much on the Blue Jays' radar to start the season, he's done pretty well. I mean, he's essentially been an emergency fill-in for the guys that were higher up on the depth chart. But anytime he's been called upon, he's given it his all. He's done the best that he can. More often than not, excuse me, the results have been favorable. So great to have him back. The spot was created because Yusei Kikuchi was placed on the injured list with a neck strain, or as many people have joked, from turning around too much to watch all the hits and runs that he gave up. So, unfortunately, the start to Yusei Kikuchi's Blue Jay tenure overall has been a real disappointment. And anybody who followed his career prior to the Blue Jays or didn't know that much about him and looked up his stats saw that he's really been inconsistent in Major League Baseball. He's got some talent. He's had trouble overall putting it together, excuse me, and getting positive, consistent results in Major League Baseball. So hopefully he's had some time. I heard something about he made a mechanical adjustment. He actually did. He pitched a rehab game in Buffalo last Saturday. 5 innings, I believe. Didn't give up any runs, so that's good. Um, did surrender 3 walks, unfortunately. Now, in hearing a bit more about that, apparently the opinion was that he was getting squeezed a little bit by the umpire. That makes me feel a little bit better. I mean, the pitcher can only control what he does. If an umpire is being blind and not calling strikes, then that's not the pitcher's fault. You can't really hold it against him. But anyway, it's been confirmed he's actually coming off the IL to make the start tomorrow for the Blue Jays against the Detroit Tigers. So I'll return to that little bit of news and the implications of it and so forth. But yeah, hopefully he was able to make enough of an adjustment that the good Yusei Kikuchi can stay with the Blue Jays for the rest of this season and beyond. And heaven knows we need him. So some other transactions, Casey Lawrence, who he actually made the starts a few weeks ago, right after my last episode, and unfortunately he struggled again. So he was sent back down. Jimmy Garcia, who had been on the injured list, he was activated. And really, wow, what a story Jimmy Garcia has been. He was a free agent signing. He's gotten into several games. I think I looked up the number. I think it was 34 games this season for the Blue Jays, and he's had 2 really bad games. And other than that, he's been lights out or as close to it as you can get. Not more often than not, he doesn't allow a run, or there have been times when he's allowed a run. But yeah, overall, what a great story he's been. And he's been really good since coming back as well from the IL. So welcome back once again, somebody who's definitely needed. Jeremy Beasley's back again. Oh my goodness. And he actually, they brought him in yesterday with a comfortable lead, and he almost made it uncomfortable. Fortunately, the Blue Jays got out of there and got their win. Yeah, when the Blue Jays make the playoffs in 2022, I don't see Jeremy Beasley occupying one of those roster spots. I think they're going to go out and get upgrades, and so. But yes, he's back again. And Sergio Romo, we barely knew you. He's been DFA'd, so he ended up getting into 6 games for the Blue Jays. And honestly, looking at everything, his velocity, his age, his number of years in Major League Baseball, and his stats with the Seattle Mariners, I was actually expecting it to be a lot worse for Sergio Romo in a Blue Jays uniform. He got into 6 games, and he only gave up runs on one of the 6 occasions. So that's better than I was expecting anyway. So he was here for a good time, not a long time, and all the best, Sergio Romo. So he went unclaimed. At first, it was reported that he had been assigned to the AAA Buffalo Bisons, which surprised me. And then about a day later, they said, correction, he's actually elected free agency, which is what I expected. So all the best to him. And so Andrew Vasquez has gone on a rehab assignment. So all the best. That a couple of very significant happenings, neither of which you find on the transactions page, because the transactions page deals with players as well as prospects, free agent signings, that sort of thing. So the rather unfortunate news that happened a week before the All-Star break was manager Charlie Montoyo was relieved of his duties. So I know a lot of Blue Jay fans were hoping that would happen. A lot of them were hoping it would happen long before it did. Excuse me. Funny thing, I've never heard anything negative about Charlie Montoyo, the human. A lot of people didn't like Charlie Montoyo, the strategist. Myself, I found him to be a better strategist than a lot of people did. When the Blue Jays didn't do well, I really felt that it was the players, for the most part, underperforming as opposed to Montoyo making the wrong move in this situation. Sometimes a manager can go out there and make the best move available to him on paper. It's not going to work out 100% of the time because you're facing major league opposition. And on any given day, the person that you're facing might be better than you. However, so I like Charlie Montoyo, and initially I was sad that he was fired. I know enough about pro sports to know that when a team underperforms, or perhaps in the case of the Blue Jays, underperforms relative to expectations, because let's face it, even when he was let go, the Blue Jays were still in a playoff spot. They were occupying the third wild card spot. So high bar there. Good thing, I guess. But Montoyo ultimately paid the price. But when a team underperforms relative to expectations, very often it's the manager or the head coach that pays with their job. Sometimes it's justified. Initially, I really didn't think that it was in the case of Charlie Montoyo. Now, John Schneider, who was the bench coach, has taken over as interim manager for the rest of this season. Depending on how things go, I wouldn't mind if they drop the interim label, but we'll see about that. But fun fact, after the 2018 season, when John Gibbons had been let go and there was a vacancy for the Blue Jays as far as their manager, I had 2 people in mind that I was hoping one of the 2 of them would become the Jays' next manager, and Don Snyder was one of those 2. I had never heard of Charlie Montoyo, but I knew of John Schneider because he had been a manager in the minor leagues for the Toronto Blue Jays, and he'd had success as a manager for the Toronto Blue Jays minor league affiliate. He was manager of the AA Fisher Cats when they won the championship. And before that, the year before that, he was manager of the co-champion Dunedin Blue Jays in A-ball. So, I felt that here's someone who had had success managing essentially this core of players. And I really hoped that they would give him a chance. And now he's got his chance. And so far, so good. I mean, you can't really argue. His record as manager so far is 8-1. So pretty darn good. How much of that is because of him? Maybe a little bit. I mean, at the very least, you can't say that he's impeding the team. So that's the Blue Jays going forward. They've got a new bench boss. And the other significant thing, even though it's not strictly speaking an employee of the Toronto Blue Jays, but rather an employee of Sportsnet, as most Blue Jay fans know, longtime broadcaster Buck Martinez has been away from the team because he was diagnosed with cancer, undergoing treatment. He finished his treatment a while ago. Then he went through a period of just being at home and resting, and now he's back. Yesterday, he returned to the broadcast booth, and got a got a huge welcome back, and so he should have. It's so great. It's so great to have him back because him being back means that he's healthy again. So, hearty welcome back to Buck Martinez, and let's hope that having him back brings the Blue Jays some luck. Excuse me just a moment. Okay, so hi Matt. Understand having Collins through the regular season, but not in the playoffs. Who do you think takes that roster spot? Is he on the roster already? Thank you, Matt. Some good questions there. Yeah, that's a really good question. I wonder who they have that could take that spot that would offer value to the team, other than Zach Collins. I'm gonna say, I mean, we don't really know what's going to happen at the trade deadline, but I'm gonna say if they don't go out and acquire an impact position player, that maybe they flip flop Zach Collins and Gabriel Moreno again, and maybe he will have gotten enough seasoning by then as a catcher and do a little bit more of what they're looking for, that they could go with three catchers that way. And yeah, I mean, Moreno can still be a weapon, even if he's still in the middle of his development. We've seen how good he is at throwing base runners out, controlling the running game in that way. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. They could still add a position player, not sure. But yes, so moving on to the heart of the order and talking about the Blue Jays and where they stand now. So they've moved up in the standings, obviously going 9-1 in their last 10 games. They are now back in the sole possession of the first wild card spot. Again, I'm certainly much happier to see that than I was when they were barely hanging on to the third wild card spot. And I imagine most of you are as well if you're Blue Jay fans. That better to see them do well and not. I don't know if there's a chance that they could take over first place in the AL East division. I mean, the Yankees are finally faltering. I knew they would at some point. I mean, they couldn't continue that insanely high pace. It just doesn't happen over 162 games. So in their last 10 games, excuse me, the Yankees have gone 4-6. So over a 10-game span, the Blue Jays gained 5 games against the New York Yankees. I still think it's a long shot at this point. There aren't all that many games left. There's just over 2 months, and it's a lot of a lot of ground to close. I think the Jays that they're already on a 7-game win streak. That they'd almost need to extend that by another 10 games and see what happens. But I mean, it's fun to have that in the realm of possibility. But you know what? At this point, I'd be happy with them getting into the playoffs as the first wild card, because the ultimate goal is to win the World Series, and you can win the World Series as a wild card team. We've seen it. There are plenty of teams that have happened. So the MLB trade deadline is just 6 days away. It's less than a week away. And people have been talking about it, speculating, hoping, dreaming, getting frustrated, some people, of course. And so what are they going to do? What should they do? There's been all sorts of talk, even since before the season started. Do they have enough pitching? What about their rotation? What about their bullpen? What about adding a left-handed bat? Well, in the past couple of months, here are these statistics team-wide for all of Major League Baseball. So I'm going to tell you the stat, and then I'm going to tell you where it ranks in all of MLB. 314 runs, first. 296 batting average for the team, first. A 356 on base percentage, first. A 489 slugging percentage, also first. And an OPS of 846. Well, if your OBP and your slugging are both first, that's going to be first too. If you know baseball stats, you knew that one already. 136 weighted runs created plus, first. So some newer stats. Average exit velocity 90.3 miles an hour, first. Hard hit balls 677, also first. Folks, the Toronto Blue Jays offense overall is exactly who they were expected to be before the season got started. Would it be nice to add an impact hitter, somebody like an Ian Happ from the Chicago Cubs, for example? Yeah, I think that would be great. But it's not something that they need. And honestly, with the needs that they do have, I think it's a luxury that they can't afford. So, Matt, going back to your question, who takes Zach Collins' spot on the playoff roster? Well, if they do end up trading for an Ian Happ, I think there's your obvious answer. Unless they drop Bradley Zimmer instead, I don't know. But Collins has got options and usefulness of the third catcher. So anyway, yeah, we'll see how it goes. I mean, the Blue Jays do have trade chips, but they don't have unlimited quality trade chips. And when you look at what their needs really are, I think what they need to do is focus on pitching. I think adding between 1 and 2 quality bullpen arms. I say that 5 times fast. And I think that would be very good. Another Jimmy Garcia out there who's with another team, so you have to trade for him, of course, but something to really bolster the effectiveness of that bullpen going forward. I'd really like to see them trade for a frontline starter. So going back to Yusei Kikuchi, okay, we get him back tomorrow. And again, I know he's got talent. He had a really good month for the Blue Jays back in May, and I really, really hope that we can go back to seeing the good Yusei Kikuchi. So I heard a couple of speculations as to why he's starting tomorrow, because they could have waited as late as Saturday for that fifth starter spot and to bring him back. So one, by starting him on Thursday, he'll be pitching the day after Kevin Gausman and the day before Alek Manoah. They have been the Blue Jays' 2 most consistent, reliable starters all season. So as opposed to having him back-to-back with Berrios, which was what the situation was before, when they get lit up and have to make an early exit, you've got back-to-back days of really stretching out your bullpen. So having Kikuchi in between the 2 of them might, in theory, give you more of a chance of, okay, if you have to go to your bullpen early, at least you didn't have to the day before, and you probably won't have to the day after, so fingers crossed. The other speculation that I heard was that seeing what Kikuchi has got earlier than later will really give the Blue Jays a chance to focus on their direction and figure out, do they need to add like a back end of the rotation starter, because there are those that are probably be available by trade. Or have they really got something in Kikuchi, or do they have to aim higher? Well, I don't know about you, but I hope that isn't the case. Yusei Kikuchi can go out tomorrow and pitch a perfect game. I still want the Blue Jays to aim high. We have seen Kikuchi so far all season, and we've seen how inconsistent he can be. And he can have one great start tomorrow. I'm not going to be convinced, not that soon, not without seeing more of a consistent body of work from him. That tells me that he's here to stay, and he's actually able to pitch well and not only help the Blue Jays get to the playoffs, but win when they're in the playoffs. That's what I want to see. I don't want to just see them get there. So who are some of the targets that I'd really like the Blue Jays to be looking at? Well, I found 4 of them on teams that aren't really doing well so far this season. So the big one, the biggest one that most people are talking about, of course, is Luis Castillo. He's with the Cincinnati Reds. Castillo has an ERA of 2.77 so far this season and a FIP of 304. So he's doing very well. He's definitely a front of the rotation starter. In terms of team control, he has team control through the end of next season as well as just this season. So he isn't just a rental. Excuse me. It's similar to when the Blue Jays traded for Jose Berrios last season. That's how much team control he has currently. Unless he's traded somewhere, the Blue Jays, please, and they managed to extend him the way they did with Perez, but one thing at a time. Another option is Frankie Montas. He's with the Oakland A's. Now, Montas actually had shoulder trouble earlier this season, and he missed a bit of time, but he's now come back. He's pitched in 2 games, and actually last night he faced the powerful Houston Astros over 5 innings and held them to, I think, 3 runs, got the win. So, hey, if he can do that against them, yeah, I'd take him. So, ERA of 318, FIP of 336, same team control as Luis Castillo. So through the end of next season. Another interesting possibility currently with the Florida Marlins is Pablo Lopez. Now he's having a very fine season. And one nice thing about him is that there's an extra year of team control compared to the others we've been talking about. So ERA of 303, a FIP of 3.63, so quite good. Team control through the end of the 2024 season. And it's been rumored that the Florida Marlins might make him available for the right return. So there's a possibility. And lastly on my little list here is Martin Perez. Now, he's a rental. He's eligible for free agency at the end of this season. He's with the Texas Rangers. Texas Rangers are further back in the standings. Really doesn't look like they're going to the playoffs this year. And I've heard it said that the Rangers are reluctant to trade him. I don't really know why. Maybe that's a ploy on their part to try to drive up the price if he does get traded. But ERA of 2.59. Wow. Yes, come here, please. And FIP of 3.12. So all these guys having really good seasons. Any of them could potentially help the Blue Jays not only get into the playoffs, but as I said, I don't want them to just get there. I don't want another 2020. I don't want an early exit once they've gotten in. I want them to win in the playoffs. I want them to go as far as they can go. I want them to bring us another championship ring. So we'll see how it goes. It's going to be a very interesting trade deadline. And yeah. Anyway, so that almost brings us to the end of the show, which means that it's time for Through Blue Jay Colored Glasses. So, again, talking about this team, where they are right now, where I see them moving forward. So they went through that little bit of a rough patch, rough space, whatever you want to call it, when they went 1-9. And a lot of people, I mean, I understand being frustrated. I understand it being heartbreaking because, trust me, nobody feels it more than I do when the Toronto Blue Jays lose games. And when they lose a bunch of games in a row, they're just in a bad way. It seems like they're finding new ways to lose every day. Vlad and his holy glove. Yeah, holy cow, the holy glove. But I understand the frustration of it. But it just seems to me that there are a lot of Blue Jay fans that when they're winning, it's great. And when they're losing, the frustration is that much more so. And there's actually something I learned about not all that long ago. It's called the negativity bias. And the way that it works is it's a cognitive bias that results in adverse events having a more significant impact on a person's psychological state than positive events do. Even if you've got 2 events, one positive, one negative, and they're pretty much of equal magnitude, that for some reason there's a human tendency, and it's a tendency a lot of people have, to give more weight to the negative events. And it just seems to me a lot of the time where if the Blue Jays win one game, that's a +1, as it should be. If the Blue Jays lose one game, that should be a -1. Some people seem to take it as a -3 or a -4. And that's not only very depressing, but it's not even real. It's a 162 game season, and we've got to take it for it is, the highs and lows, the ups and downs. And when things aren't going well, absolutely use it as a barometer, figure out what is and isn't working. Excuse me, and what they need to improve upon, and they're going to do it. I have a good feeling. They haven't come as far as they have by signing Hyun-Jin Ryu. He's done for the year, unfortunately. A year later, they signed George Springer, who's been fantastic. That season, they traded for Jose Barrios, and they extended Jose Barrios. Cost them two of their top prospects, but that's fine. They weren't afraid to do it. And then that offseason, they signed Kevin Gausman. They traded 4 players / prospects for Matt Chapman. Signed Yusei Kikuchi. Okay, well, that has yet to really pay off. Hopefully it's about to. But they didn't do all of this just to be stopped now, because they need to plug a couple of holes to find one starting pitcher and 1 to 2 relief pitchers. They're going to do it. They have prospects. They're going to make good deals to make the Toronto Blue Jays a finished product, and it's coming. We're going to go on a run. We're going to go on a run that's even better than it was last year, something comparable to the 2015 season, I think. Last year was a good team. This is a better team. They had 6 all-star selections this year instead of 4. Yeah, last year was good. They had Guerrero, Bichette, Marcus Semien, and Teoscar Hernandez last year. This year they had 6. George Springer opted out, and good for him. He's got some ongoing health issues, but we had 5 guys that actually attended the All-Star game for Toronto this year. Guerrero, Santiago Espinal, Alejandro Kirk, Alec Manoah, and Jordan Romano, and all of them very, very deserving. So this is our time, folks. We're making the playoffs. They're going to add, and they're going to go on a deep run. And I can't wait to see it, and I'm sure you guys can't either. And on that note, that's all I've got for you today. So enjoy the rest of your evening. Let's hope the Blue Jays extend their winning streak, and I'll see you again next week.